Hello everyone, welcome back to SwitchUp and to another review. I think we're doing quite well for January. We've got another one of a game called Laika, Aged Through Blood, which is a bit of an unusual one because it was originally due to release by publisher Thunderfall and developer Brainwash Gang about a year ago, and then I believe it was delayed and it's finally made its way to the Switch, or at least almost, in January of 2025.
Yeah, this describes itself as a motorvania, and we'll go into exactly what that means in a moment. But is this game the Mad Max of motorbike mayhem, or just another Road Warrior wannabe? Well, let's find out. Let's start with the story then, and this tells the tale of a post-apocalyptic world where birds have risen to superiority, causing any other creature to effectively live underground or within small compounds amongst themselves.
We've seen a few games in the past take inspiration from real-world conflicts and differences between peoples, and Laika does something similar here.
You play as Laika, who is a coyote warrior trying to hit back against the birds, but it goes a bit deeper than that, telling the story of her relationship with her daughter, and this becomes more prominent as you go on.
You'll meet many side characters throughout your motorvania. You'll be able to talk to these, and often you'll come off of your bike and interact with them in a more traditional sense.
Let's move on to gameplay now then, and as I mentioned in the intro, this calls itself a motorvania. Let's break that term down. So basically it is a traditional metroidvania in the way the world is set out and the way that you'll traverse it. What makes this different is that you never, other than to speak to characters, as Mark just said, come off your bike. You'll use it in the way of combat and navigation through each area.
I think we were both a little concerned about how this would play out. Obviously, it's nice having an idea like Metroid or Motorvania, but combining those, it could feel a little bit forced. I think it doesn't.
No, I don't think it does, although I will say I did think it did for the first half an hour. And it was just one of those instances of riding, no pun intended, through that first part to get to the part where it really does start to click.
Now the controls of the bike facilitate this. While you're initially thinking, okay, it's all on a single plane going in a straight direction, you soon learn the move to drift and turn your bike in the other direction, and also switch lanes. You can ride up obstacles by tilting the bike backwards.
Yeah, the controls are probably the crux of the game in that they make it unique, but they are the part that take the most getting used to. If I were to compare it to another game, it feels very much like Excitebike on the NES, going back a few years now, in that they feel overly twitchy to begin with, and any miscalculation on your part in terms of moving the stick will generally end with you face planting onto the floor.
Yeah, it does that thing where if you accelerate and don't hold the bike to the ground, you'll literally just nosedive straight into the floor.
Absolutely. This is all necessary though, because you will be using your bike not just to navigate, but also during combat. You'll come across a number of enemies as you make your way through the game, and by keeping your bike steady and showing them the bottom as you're riding, you can deflect their bullets or at least stop yourself from being injured. And you'll also need to use your bike to reload your gun. You do this by performing a backflip in the air.
Now, alongside being able to essentially just block the attacks, you can also parry them by timing a button press, and it will send this back to them, instantly killing them, recharged by doing a forward flip.
In terms of traversal through the stages themselves or the area that you are in, Mark mentioned a moment ago that you can go up and down different planes. There'll be a lot of ramps and jumps that you'll need to use to your advantage to get across. And again, it's something that perhaps in theory doesn't sound as if it would work, but once you're playing and you get into a flow, it does work very well.
Yeah, I think knowing that you don't need to be constantly moving changes the game quite significantly.
Yes, it really does. There was an area where there were about 6 enemies to take out. Bearing in mind you need to reload by doing the backflips and what have you, it seemed not impossible, but very difficult. Like it would really take almost a flawless run of flying in, killing a couple, backflipping, etc. And then it occurred to us, or Mark to give him credit, that you could just stop for a moment, take a couple out, then rev your engine, speed up, etc. And this works very well too. So it's nice to see that you don't have to constantly move through the game.
To make things a little easier, when you're using your pistol, time slows right down, almost bullet time for a moment to allow you to aim, and that's done with a twin stick approach. Despite appearances, you will be doing some traditional Metroidvania elements as well. At one stage, there's a lift that you're trying to get working, you have to flick a few switches, and you'll progress within almost a locked-in area before you can then move on.
Yeah, these switches are flipped by shooting them. So once again, you'll need to be aware of your ammunition situation and reload when necessary. And you'll return to areas that you've already visited. And this time, maybe a new path has opened up, or a blockage that was there is now not there. And you can obviously take that path instead.
What I liked is that it didn't rest on its laurels. The further you got in, it kept introducing new and quite surprising mechanics. Things like crafting and then the boss fights.
Yeah, so again, you take these bosses on your bike using the skills that the game's taught you up to that point, and they are difficult because obviously your brain is trying to revert to a more traditional form of how you would fight a boss in a game, and this is not possible. But again, once you get into it, it's a really refreshing change.
It really is. The first one has a snowplow on the front and you ride up it, do your backflip, do your slow-mo shots, and try and also deflect those bullets. It's actually quite tightly designed.
It's very tightly designed, and it had to be, otherwise it wouldn't have worked. The only thing with the controls is that initial period of acclimatization. But once you've got that, it does feel very rewarding indeed.
As you're speeding through the stages, you can save your progress at these bone totems. You have to press the button on them, don't you?
You do, which I'm not sure if I like that, but I can understand it, I guess, because there are times when you do backtrack, perhaps you don't want to save, is the only thing I can think of. But yeah, perhaps a slightly easier way to do that would have been nice.
Rather than a traditional skill tree system that you find in a lot of metroidvanias, or finding one specific skill, here it's all tied to the crafting system.
Yeah, so you'll find items as you're moving through each of the areas. Sometimes they may be parts that don't quite look right and you can shoot them and obviously they'll fall away and you collect the bits. And you'll use this crafting system to upgrade your equipment, and even for a cooking system that will grant Laika temporary buffs.
It's a nice idea and it's in keeping with the game. To be honest, I've played so many, and you have, metroidvanias with a standard skill tree system. It's just nice to see people going in a slightly different direction.
In terms of negatives, not a huge amount, to be perfectly honest. One thing that could have been refined is the way that if you die and you need to go past a point where the game wants to show you a new mechanic, you'll need to watch the tutorial for this every time you retry. A way of just skipping this completely would have been appreciated, but it's not the biggest deal in the world.
No, overall, I think our takeaway in terms of gameplay and controls is that it's incredibly well designed. It's innovative and takes the Metroidvania in a direction I don't think either of us expected to work.
Gameplay is great, although it can be quite unforgiving to begin with, especially until you unlock a few weapon upgrades. It gets 17 out of 20.
The controls aren't bad, they do require a little bit of mastering. They score 17 out of 20. Many of you will have clicked on this video probably because of the art alone and then been pleasantly surprised by the fact that the game's actually good.
Yeah, it uses a hand-painted aesthetic and it does look quite stunning, to be perfectly honest. It has that beautiful way of conveying a world that's clearly fallen apart whilst not having to resort to darkness to show this.
Yeah, it looks like you've picked up a high-quality graphic novel.
Yes, it does.
The art is incredibly well done.
It does. It reminds me a little bit of like a 2000 AD comic book. It has that sort of style to it. And yeah, every part of it, obviously you're revisiting a lot of the same areas at the beginning, but it looks so good you don't mind.
In terms of the performance, we didn't have any crashes at all. It's quite consistent. There are a couple of drops, especially in larger firefights, but it's never egregious.
There were some really lovely animated cutscenes as well when you get to a part in the story that needs a bit more detail in terms of conveying what's going on. No voice acting, but it didn't feel necessary. I think the game does a good job of getting its point across without this.
I was quite pleased to see that it actually goes in the direction of a more adult approach. As you can see, there's quite a bit of claret here. Enemies just get eviscerated and sent flying across the screen.
Yep, very much so. There's a lot of imagery as well that definitely ties into this. Nothing explicit or anything like that, but it's definitely trying to put across a world, as I said at the beginning, that's completely on its knees.
When it comes to audio, it does have a full OST, and it's a good one, really in time with the universe. It's got some Mad Max twangs to it every now and then, but for me it's the sound effects that really elevate this one. It's got that chunky goodness to it.
Visuals, as mentioned, are absolutely lovely. A couple of issues with frame drops take the score down a touch, but it still scores 18 out of 20. Audio is quite simply sublime. There are a number of different tracks as you search out the cassette tapes hidden throughout the world. It gets the full 20 out of 20.
Laika definitely represents good value. You're looking at around about 20 hours to finish this one, up to 25 if you want to be a completionist, and it comes in at a reasonable price.
Yep, this will sell for £15.99 or your regional equivalent, and it does have a 35% discount as of the time of this video that goes all the way up until just before launch, being the 30th of January.
It's not often that we would say go for that, but I think this is one of those occasions where if you're a Metroidvania fan, you're looking for something a little bit different, then you could definitely do a lot worse.
With that in mind, value scores 18 out of 20. To conclude, Laika Aged Through Blood is a very refreshing game. It takes the age-old Metroidvania formula and just gives it a bit of a shake-up, really.
It does. It falls within a month that's had already one excellent Metroidvania, but this one just pipped it for me with its innovation and unique take on the genre.
Laika Aged Through Blood gets a SwitchUp score of 90%. Thank you everybody for watching this review. We hope you enjoyed it. Please do remember to leave a like if you did. Don't forget, if you're looking for eShop credit to pick this game up, you can use our website, switchup.gg, and doing so will get you 5% of your purchase price back as cash back. There are other links down there to other places such as Nixie and PlayAsia. Using the links will save you a bit of money, and it does help the channel out, which is much appreciated.
I know at this point someone's typing, I've just realised this was two different people.
Yeah, we get that a lot, don't we?
A lot, yeah.
Yeah, very strange, but there you go. Definitely two people. Thank you to our patrons and our channel members for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.